And welcome to today's webinar, Ready, Set, Planet, a district-wide approach to preparing students for college and career. I am your host, Kathy McDonald, Assistant Director for Network Partnerships with the Florida College Access Network. I am excited to welcome on our webinar today, guest presenter Anthony Cook, who is the Coordinator of College and Career Services for the School District of Osceola County. Anthony has been in education for almost 16 years as a teacher and counselor. In 2013, he was honored as the Counselor of the Year after having been nominated several times for that honor and for the Teacher of the Year award. He has spent the last 2 years serving in his current role, advancing the work that school counselors do every day in his district and by presenting at conferences and trainings around the state of Florida. I am also thrilled to welcome on our webinar today, Laverne Hanfield, who's FCAN's program coordinator, and she heads up our College Ready Florida statewide initiatives and collaborates with FCAN partners to assess community needs. She previously served as an AmeriCorps Vista working on implementing similar college access and success programs in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Today, she'll be updating you all on the Planet Florida initiative that was launched just last year. Now, to get us started, a few housekeeping items. Submit your questions in the box, which you should find in the right side of your desktop computer. You should see a dashboard. We're all about learning together, so please let us know what's on your mind, and we'll make sure one of our guest presenters gets to your questions. Second, please share what you're learning on social media. We love to hear what's resonating with you. You can find us on Twitter at FL College Access. Please use the hashtag FCAN so we can find you, and also use the hashtag Ready, Set, Planet. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within 1 week of the recording. Now, I know we have a few new folks on our webinar today, so listening in, a little bit about FCAN. Our mission is to lead the collaborative movement to ensure every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Our vision is to see a Florida working together where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. We do our work in 3 primary ways. First, FCAN publishes research and data on evidence-based practices and policy opportunities to strengthen Florida's talent pool. Second, through our local college access networks, which represent 82% of the state's population, these cross-sector coalitions are made up of community leaders who come together to create solutions and partnerships to support local talent development. And finally, through FCAN coordinates 4 College Ready Florida initiatives, which we'll talk about today, that support students in continuing their education after high school. Our work is guided by our 7 conditions for success, which you can find out more about on our website. Today's webinar provides a great example of opportunities for everyone, clear information and guidance, and multiple pathways to success. And with that, I'd like to turn the presentation slides over to my dear colleague, Laverne Hanfield, who's going to give an update on the statewide initiatives in Planet Florida. Laverne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kathy, and welcome everyone today. Here you can see the overview of the College Ready Florida initiatives. We have Apply Yourself Florida, which helps students to complete applications to the post-secondary pathway of their choosing during the school day with the support of volunteers. We have the Florida FAFSA Challenge, which seeks to help schools and districts increase their FAFSA completion rates by encouraging students to complete the FAFSA. It also serves as a time to educate all students on the various forms and financial aid and helping them to access that aid for their plans after high school. Florida College Decision Day is the time to celebrate students' plans for life after high school, no matter what path they've selected. And Planet Florida strives to ensure that all students graduate high school with a college or career plan, and we will be focusing on Planet Florida today. So, Planet Florida seeks to help students develop their skills and explore their interests, career options, and the education they'll need after high school to achieve their goals. In creating Planet Florida, we've broken down the process into what we call the 4 E's to help students create their plan. The first is Expose. This is where students are exposed to a wide range of potential careers and options for education beyond high school. Explore, where students are given the opportunity to explore and learn more about the careers and education pathways that interest them. In the experiment stage, they are encouraged to try on different skill sets and interests to discover what they like and what they feel is a right fit for them. And the final stage is when they have hopefully honed in on a career of interest, identified the education needed to reach that career, and have declared and are executing their plan for what they will be doing after high school. And I believe next we have a poll question. So we would like to know, do you track students' plans for life after high school? You can select yes, no, if you're not sure exactly how to. And Kathy can see all the responses so she can decide when it's a good time.
Yeah, let's just give it a couple more seconds here. We still have quite a few folks voting. Okay, let me go ahead and close that out and share the results. As you'll see, yes, we have people working with students on their plans, so that's exciting.
Yay, that is great. More than half of you. About a quarter don't do so, and about a fifth aren't sure how to. There are multiple ways to help students plan for their lives after high school and to track these plans, and that is something that Anthony will be discussing in a little bit. So for Planet Florida, FCAN has created several free resources, which are all available on our website, for schools and community organizations to engage students and families in some activities to help them discover various careers and create a plan for life after high school. They currently include one-pagers, the College and Career Readiness Guide, and the Planet Florida Toolkit. As the other College Ready Florida initiatives can also be a part of Planet Florida, depending on the student's selected pathway, other materials from those initiatives can also serve as resources for Planet Florida, such as the Apply Yourself Florida Student Guide, which is part of the Apply Yourself Florida initiative and can be found on that webpage. The one-pagers that we have were created to equip students and families with tools that they can utilize to help students plan their lives beyond high school. These also serve as a great way to make sure that the discussions that school counselors and mentors are having with students in school are also being supported at home. So the first one-pager is Make a Plan, which helps students to develop a plan by following the 4 E's that we outlined earlier. We have Choose Your Path, which helps students and parents understand the 3 main paths after high school: education, service, and work. And we have The More You Learn, The More You Earn, which helps students understand the value of pursuing education beyond high school. So the Planet Florida update, these have been updated with new information pertaining to the median wages earned based on education level, which is a feature of The More You Learn, The More You Earn one-pager. And these resources these one-pagers are now available in Spanish and Haitian Creole. And they're up on the website at this moment. We are also putting the finishing touches on a senior year checklist with all the tasks that students should complete once they've chosen their path, which includes tasks for enrolling in education, enlisting in the military, or seeking employment after high school. So stay tuned for that. Very briefly, this is the College and Career Readiness Guide, which schools and organizations are welcome to adapt and brand with their logos. It outlines exploratory activities for students as they progress through grades 6 through 12. Similar to the one-pagers, the guide also drives home the major pathways that students can pursue after high school, as well as career clusters to become more familiar with the different career fields. Inside the brochure, activities have been divided by grade level and into the 4 E's. There are also identified milestones that they should achieve as they navigate through each grade level and E in order to create their plan for their career goal and next steps. And similar to the one-pagers, the Planet Florida update for the College and Career Readiness Guide is that they are also now available in Spanish and Haitian Creole and can be found on the Planet Florida webpage at this moment. The Planet Florida Toolkit serves as a framework for activities that can be done in school or after school to help students envision and plan for their future. It is built on the best practices and strategies from schools, community organizations, and partners across the state and the nation. The grade levels in the toolkit served have been expanded to include K through 5. So it expands from K through 12 in the toolkit. And you'll notice that some activities also fall under multiple E's, as you can have an activity or resource that helps a student both explore career and education opportunities and helps them execute their plan, like My Career Shines. So this is just an example of how you'll see the activities in the toolkit. They will have a description of the activity, what you'll need to execute it, what grade level it's appropriate for, and what E it is categorized with. And Planet Florida updates. We have selected a few of the activities from the major toolkit and have created a separate toolkit that outlines how to conduct them virtually. Since COVID-19 has caused us to pivot many activities and services to adapt virtually, we created this specific resource to make that adjustment smoother. We have also compiled other resources from our lovely partners across the state. In many cases, your local college access network has resources tailored specifically to your local community or region. Here are some examples that encourage career exploration from the Uplift Ed LCAN that serves Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, and the Earn Up LCAN that serves Northeast Florida, including Duval, St. Johns, Nassau, Baker, Putnam, and Clay counties. And there are more resources similar to these available on the Planet Florida webpage. So we do encourage you to check those out. Lastly, we also have examples of scope and sequences provided by Marion and Broward counties that show how they've implemented college and career planning and the outline of the tasks and activities that each grade level does. Next, we have another poll question. This one is specifically, how do you track students' plans for life after high school?
My apologies. I think I got a little too fast on the button there. Let me see if it'll let me redo it. I don't know that it will. Ah, it's not. I'm sorry. Technological error there, Laverne.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. Well, we'll move on to the next. However, I will say, as the task of tracking students' plans for life after high school, there are obviously multiple ways in which you can conduct tracking those plans, whether it be through electronic surveys, through Naviance or Zello, or one-on-one conversations, paper forms, whichever way you choose. Also, if you would just like to put in the chat which way that you track students' plans after high school, that would also be great, or platforms that you use to do so. But some who are attending the webinar today may be looking for better ways to conduct their tracking, and others may find that their method may be perfectly efficient for them. Anthony will share some things today. So for the future of Planet Florida, we hope that schools and districts adopt a goal of 100% of students graduating high school with a thought-out plan for what comes next for them. This would look like selecting one of the 3 pathways, education, service, or work, and executing and reporting major tasks around their selected pathway. For example, if their pathway is education, they would report that they intend to what they intend to study based on their career goal, and to solidify how they'll pay for education. If they plan to enlist in the military, they would identify which branch they're interested in and speak with a recruiter about the steps needed to enlist. If they intend to work after high school, they're conducting job searches, completing resumes and cover letters, and identifying places they want to work. We're currently working, as I said before, on the checklist that you can use to help your students complete their plans. And now, as you can see on the screen, I will turn it over to Anthony to discuss Osceola County's approach to helping every student graduate with a plan.
Thank you for having me be a part of this. Hopefully, as I share our process and how we got to where we currently are, you can pick up some things. So first thing I want to answer is the why behind everything that we've done. So back in 2011, our leadership, really Dr. Plinsky over at Valencia College, that's our local college, she started this conversation amongst our district leadership and community leaders. Osceola County had the lowest college going rate in Central Florida at 41.3%. So we began to ask ourselves why that is. Was that an academic thing? Was it just simple lack of knowledge as far as what was available after graduation? Was it a lack of access as far as finances and other issues that come up when we're discussing equity? And we just wanted to figure out how we could best serve our students. So that's really what drove it. And the initiative that came out of that was our Got College initiative. So the context of everything that we're doing is really a part of what started back in 2011, that Got College movement. So after we answered the why, began to dig deep in that, we had several meetings across about a year or two. And there were 8 areas that the people that attended kind of narrowed everything down. And the people that attended, again, were our state college, our local tech college leaderships from both of those areas, community leaders, school board members, district leadership, educators, counselors. So it really was a community effort. And over the course of our meetings, we narrowed everything down to these 8 areas of focus that you can see here. And once we narrowed it down, we created subcommittees to kind of focus on each one of those areas so that we can really be on the same page and that we could really drive that area of focus. And of course, we did come back together and discuss what things were being done, as some areas kind of overlapped with others. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was working in conjunction, even though there were subcommittees that were created. Now that we are where we are, it's no longer an initiative, it's kind of the work that we do. It's just the way that we go about our business. And I am happy to report that what I'm about to share with you, we have seen success. We were 41%, lowest in Central Florida. Now we're in the top 5. We were at 56% at the end of last year. So it did prove to be effective. So like I said, hopefully you'll gather some things out of this. So going to that way of business, we thought it would be important to discuss how we marry what we do in our district with our state initiatives that are primarily coming from FCAN and what happened after the Got College movement. So it's hard for me sometimes to say, oh, we're doing this one state initiative, because we do it all throughout the year, especially at the high school level. We track data and report that monthly, and that gets gathered and reported out at the end of the year, which in a few slides we'll share with you kind of what that data looks like. But for us, college applications, which is centered around Apply Yourself Florida, we do college applications really start at the end of junior year. Our high flyers, our academically competitive students, typically will have some type of summer bridge program at the high schools with their college and career counselors. And they're working with them on all the different components of their college applications, creating that Common App, getting their schools identified, getting down in the weeds of their majors that are linked to their careers. And they'll work with them throughout the summer. And when we get back to school, those kids that maybe couldn't have attended or that are thinking about going for a year, they'll begin to work with those students as well. And that could be an identified college application day. It could be a college application week. When I was in the high school, I did college application Tuesday, and I really focused on those 4-year students. And how we married this with our FCAN initiative, Apply Yourself Florida, is we really started to do that during college week. We wanted to make a strong push. So students who had their mind made up, whether that was 4-year, whether that was 2-year tech, vocational, military, employment or apprenticeship, we were working with them during that week to get their applications completed so that we can start focusing on those other things. Because as you know, senior year, you're juggling what's going on senior year and then your life after senior year. So as many as we could get in the beginning, we wanted to gather. So College Week was really the week that we started to push Apply Yourself Florida. And then our other piece that we really start to push is Florida FAFSA Challenge, that marrying with FCAN's initiatives. So that has been something that has been near and dear to our district's heart. It's not just about where our students going, but it's also about making sure that they have access. So FAFSA has been something that we've worked on since the Got College movement. And we really started to push this as soon as FAFSA opened. So once they made it October 1st, you know, they changed that a couple of years ago. That was a big deal to us. So our students and our admin tend to be very competitive. So we try to run things throughout College Week to prep them for it. And then once October 1st rolls around, it's kind of like College Week Part 2. But it's really focusing on FAFSA, and then under that is our students who haven't applied somewhere. So we're, you know, working with both sets of those, but really trying to hit home the FAFSA because, especially in our district, we're a Title I district. So we want to make sure that since the majority of our students probably would receive Pell Grant, that we're making sure that they're completing the FAFSA and we're helping them through those steps to get that completed so that they have the money to be able to pursue whatever it is that is for them. And this looks different at every school. We have some schools that do a FAFSA on the 1st, so they only do FAFSA applications on the 1st, so that way they can funnel students and families to that date. And they'll be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to catch those families that are working at night and to catch those families that are working during the day. They have FAFSA nights at schools. We work with our state college who does a FAFSA frenzy. So we will funnel students and families through there as well because they have a larger staff that can work with some of the large numbers that we may have. And we also work with the Education Opportunity Center. We started that partnership a couple of years ago. And they'll come in and they'll work one-on-one with our students as well. And we saw the benefits of that throughout this past year, which when we get to these slides where we show you the data, I'll show you where that shows up the most. And then lastly,
Anthony, sorry, if I could just jump in with a quick question. Yesenia was asking, how do you manage and or communicate the Florida FAFSA Challenge for families that are undocumented and or unable to complete the FAFSA so that you're not isolating families and or students?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We know that most of our families that are in our area, I've been in other areas where you have some families that are really educated on the whole undocumented process. But most of our families that are here, they're not so much. So when we say FAFSA and we talk about free money, that's what brings them in. So we really work on building those relationships with their college and career counselor. That is done in several different ways. We'll talk about it on the next slide as far as pushing in and doing classes, doing lessons within classes, having different workshops throughout the school year, utilizing our platform, social media, our reminds to get the message out. Then when those students trickle in, we begin to discuss that undocumented process with them. So really utilizing, Kathy, I'm at a loss right now. What's our one? What's our one that we would use for undocumented students? Is DACA, right?
DACA.
Yes.
Yeah. Deferred action.
Yes. So the scholarship, yes, the scholarship that's for that, we call that our undocumented FAFSA. And we know that that's difficult to complete, but as we talk about all the time, we're going to exhaust every resource that we have to make sure that they get what they need. And then making those partnerships with other state colleges and colleges really in the nation that are really big supporters of our undocumented students. So it starts with the relationship. I was at the high school that I was at for 9 years, and it wasn't until my latter 3 that students were really like divulging that type of information to me. So we work really hard on creating those relationships at the school, so that way when they do come in and they can't complete their FAFSA, we can start to work on those alternative means for them and hook them up with schools that will work with them on that. So that's a great question. And I don't have the greatest answer, but I'm kind of like, whatever's out there, we're going to exhaust that until we've exhausted everything that we can. So that's typically how we approach that. In our Florida College Decision Day, that started off with one high school that was doing it. After the one high school was doing it, a couple of high schools jumped on board. They saw how successful it was in bringing our community in, and it now is a district-wide thing that we do. I have my college and career counselors. We pick dates. There's a whole form that I have them complete as far as what they're celebrating, how they're celebrating, who's invited, how they're communicating things. They create an agenda for the day. Our superintendent and assistant soups attend these. School board members will try to attend these as well. So this has become not just a one-off kind of thing. This is something that we plan for and have planned for the last 3 years, where we do it district-wide. I have taken over our district Instagram page. In fact, it became so good that I blew it up last year. I broke it. So I now have my own Instagram page that I'll be doing these takeovers from, where the stuff that we record on social media and document will be getting shared through our district social media as well. So this is a pretty big deal for us, and we celebrate that at the end of April and that first week of May. Now, some of the ways that we work on those relationships and begin to really track plans of students and help them to explore is we do have, this year is our first year that we're going fully K-12. We've been a 6 through 12 district for the past several years, but our career exploration platforms and lessons are embedded in content areas. In elementary, right now the plan is to go through block, and this being our first year, it is kind of a trial and error to see what works best. We're going to really encourage this during college week to start that process at the elementary level. And then we hit it up again. There is a career week in February. So our plan is to get them during college week and then to get them again during career weeks with elementary. Our middle school, it's embedded in our social studies. That works well for us in Florida, especially because with that U.S. history career planning piece, the DOE has an expectation that college and career is being done through that class. There's 8 strands that teachers have to focus on. Not to mention, in order for an 8th grader to be promoted, they have to have access to a web resource where they can explore careers, and they have to have created a 4-year planner. So that just kind of made sense for us to make sure that got done. So we had it embedded in the curriculum unit plans for all of social studies 6th through 8th grade. And then with high school, we do it through ELA. And the reason we do it that way is because every student, the majority of students, are sitting in an English 1, 2, 3, 4 or an AP English course. It's harder to do it through some of the other classes just because of the fluctuations and where students may land. You know, not every 9th grader sitting in an Algebra 1 class. That could be dispersed across 9th and 10th grade. So we've chosen to do ELA and have had great success. So with K-5, it's all about just exploring. We just want them to know what possibilities are there. In middle school, they're starting to identify their career clusters. And for us, we use My Career Shines at the middle school to do that. And with Galaxy being rolled out this year, that's what we're using at the elementary level this year. And at the high school, we have been an Naviance district for the last few years. And this year, we are now a Zello district. And we track students' potential careers through that, through Naviance, and we will continue to do that through Zello. For 9th grade, we're just narrowing down those career clusters again. 10th grade, we're starting to get into the actual careers and then those pathways for those careers. And then 11th grade, those kids that are going that traditional route are starting to dig into those majors, whereas other kids are just solidifying what their careers are. And then we have common data tracking that we utilize. Again, we have looked at several different platforms. We were a Naviance district and now we're Zello. So all of our tracking goes through Zello. But I will tell you, when we started this process in 2011, that was paper-based, that was forms, that was using our SIS system, Focus. we were tracking any way that we could until we were able to get a web-based platform where we could took care of that tracking for us. We do track throughout the month. The college and career counselors report out to me throughout the month, and then I bring that before school leadership, and I bring that before district leadership, so everybody knows where we are. It's also embedded in our district strategic plan, and many of the schools have it embedded in their strategic plans as well. So the accountability piece is really high for us in our district, and that gets reported while this stuff is being gathered through our web platform. There is a system that we use to kind of communicate what that data is, and that we're a Microsoft district, so we use OneDrive for that. So there's some shared data files that are in there that I set the template up for them, and the college and career counselors will input that data. That way I can gather it monthly and create the charts and things necessary to get it out to the stakeholders so that they know where we are. The data points that we track, and this is a concerted effort. I don't just do this alone. I have a college and career counselor at every high school that tracks this. Middle school, it's a little bit easier because I can just pull from My Career Shines who has completed their inventory, and it'll be the same thing for Galaxy as well. But we track confirmed plans. What I mean by that is that there's evidence that a plan has been completed. At the very beginning of this process, we usually just have students self-report. That doesn't give us clean data, and we need that, so we confirm everything. So we track confirmed plans. We track confirmed FAFSA, meaning we've seen evidence that a FAFSA has been completed. We track scholarship dollars. Again, we need evidence that it was awarded, and then we'll put that in our platforms to be able to collect that data. We also track the final post-secondary plans as well. So we know where students say they're gonna go, but then at the end of the year, we have a whole process where we really narrow down where is that? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Is it tech? Is it vocational? Is it military? Is it employment? Is it apprenticeship? So we gather all of that stuff towards the end of the year.
Great, thanks, Anthony. I know you're going to be sharing some data on that in a minute. Joelle is asking if her district does not invest in a web-based tracking system, how can she as a graduation coach track for her school?
I can share with you if you want to reach out to me after this. I do have a Microsoft form template that has our same questions in there that kind of help us track all of this, but you can utilize Google Forms, you can utilize Microsoft Forms. What's going to be a challenge is who are your people at your schools that are going to jump on the same ship as you, because I wouldn't be able to do this if my college and career counselors weren't on board, and if the accountability wasn't built into our district strategic plan. So I have the support from my district colleagues and leadership, but I also have a team that's out there in the trenches that's making sure that they're gathering that information. So knowing who your key people are at the schools that are going to be doing that is probably the more challenging thing, but being able to use Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, anything like that where you can collect that data, or share Drive where your point people at the schools are inputting that data for you, that's how we did it at the beginning, and that's how I would suggest you do it in that situation.
Great, thanks, Anthony. Dorlita wanted to know, how do you confirm military and career after graduation? Do you survey them?
So after graduation is tricky, right? Because really the only access that we have to that is if you invest, which I was going to talk about this in our slides. There's one site in particular I want to show you how we put all together, all the data. The only one that I know of, and there could be others, my knowledge is limited. There's 135 of y'all. You may know some things I don't know, right? But National Clearinghouse is how we can track what's going on afterwards. For us, we also have CFeed, and that's basically a data research team that works with our state universities, but specifically Valencia, UCF, and OTEC. Those are our state college, university, and then our technical college, where we're trying to really start to track the matriculation rate. So unless you have that partnership with your local universities and colleges, that's hard to get, or you have the clearinghouse data. But with military, you really don't know. With employment, you don't know. With apprenticeship, you don't know, unless you build up an alumni network which we started to do last year, where we can communicate with students to find out if they are continuing that pursuit. But up until we did that, there's really no way to track that once they leave you. And even with the state universities and such, unless you have access to Clearinghouse or you have that partnership, you really don't know what happens once they leave. So for us, it's really about, they're with us K-12. Our job is to help them explore and to help them identify a plan and to execute that plan. And once they leave us, they're in the world's hands, so to speak. So we try to measure and control what we can control. And after that, because I have some of the partnerships and access to data, I can track some of those things, but most of us don't. So once they leave you, it's really up to whatever systems you might have in place. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
That's
Yeah.
telling me I need to jump to the next slide.
Let's get to the data.
Okay, so I just wanted you to see, I wanted to provide the context of this data, and I wanted you to be able to see what I share. I put these in different, I use Canva, and I have like what I call a high school secondary report card that goes out to all of the high school teams. I actually sit with the leadership at the beginning of the year, and we look at this, and it gets added into their strategic plan, and we have a process called stock take. It becomes part of their stock take conversations. And I have one that I create for the district team, and it's included in our strategic plan and our stock take conversations as well. So you can see here, I wanted to be transparent with y'all. It's not like we have a steady increase every year. You can see here for our confirmed plans, in 14-15, we were pretty high. There was a slow decline all the way through 17-18, and then we jumped back up in 18-19. And it took us 2 years before we had an agreed upon process. When we go back to our GOT College that started in 2011, you can see here it wasn't until 2014, 2015 that we had a really clear process and what we were collecting and how we were collecting it, which is why I have that data for that year moving forward. And you can see that 73% that's there. We didn't have somebody in my position. There was the person that was here was leaving. There was a gap. Then they brought somebody in. They were here for a couple of months, and then they left, and then we didn't have anybody for a while. So I thought that when we talk about data and how it can promote certain things, I thought that was important to point out, because it shows there's somebody needed in this position that can focus strictly on that college and career piece. Because you can see I came on in 18-19, and that's when we rolled out Navient's district-wide. You can see the bump in our numbers. And even with the dip last year, a lot of that was due to the fact that we were, because of COVID, we lost our 3 most important months, March, April, and May. For us, especially in our district, we sit at about 60%, and then March, April, May is where we kind of capture everybody else that we can capture. So I thought that was important to share with you. And you can see last year, I wanted you to see what our students were doing, because we do track this. This is something that the CCCs do in our OneDrive, the template that I created for them. They give me data on where our students are going, how many are going 2 year, how many are going 4 years, so forth and so on. So you can see in our district, the majority of our students, their plan is to go 2 year. And after that, it is 4 year. And then I wanted to also share with the other, that includes our students that are going voc rehab. That includes our students who have a confirmed employment, whether that's straight out into the workforce, or they're using their certifications and their CTE pathways that's launching them into that career. Our apprenticeships are captured in there, and then our students that have no plans. That's why that number is rather large. In addition to that, Laverne, you can go to the next one. I wanted to share with you even tracking our monies. So you can see for our scholarships, we had a nice incline for those first 4 years. And that jump in 17-18, we really pressed Raise.me. And that year in particular, we had a ton of our athletes get scholarships. That's why that number was so high. But you can see right now, we're declining. So this is something that is on our district leadership's radar. It's something that we've been discussing in our PLCs, ways to improve that this year. So we have some plans that are set forth at the schools to see if we can get that number back up. And then FAFSA, I wanted to show you what we've been doing with this. So as you know, in the state of Florida, we're one of the hardest hit for FAFSA verification. I used to only track confirmed FAFSAs, but we thought it was important to begin tracking completed FAFSAs, meaning that they've gone through the verification, colleges have received it, there's no more issues, there's no errors. And you can see in the middle there that where there's only 2 bars, that's our completed FAFSAs. One of the things that we thought was important to share is that that second bar, that 46%, when you look at that in the comparative year, last year, our confirmed FAFSAs, you can see that there was only a 5% dip. That was huge for us because the year before, while we had 55% of our students confirming that they had a FAFSA completed, there was a 14% dip in those completed FAFSAs with no errors. So we really focused on that this past year to not only have them confirm that their FAFSA was done, but to have it completed error-free. And you can see the evidence there that we were able to mitigate that loss. So we've been tracking close to the state, to the national rate when we're looking at confirmed, but when we're looking at our completed ones, we're right at about where the state is and well below the nation. So this is something that's a point of emphasis for us. We're hitting up some things really hard this year during College Week with video support. There's some lessons that have been built into Zello to help students and families do this as well. So this is an area of focus for us this year. Next slide.
Anthony, a question came through on can you explain the process of how you're confirming the FAFSA?
Yeah. So there's 2 things that we take. So, you know, when a student completes it, they have their confirmation page, right? That it'll either be on the screen or they'll get it through an email. But if for any reason they don't have that, they can't access that, then we'll have them go in and look at their SAR. In either one of those. So like our plan this year, they'll have to upload that. That's an assignment that we attached in Zello that we track throughout the school year. So part of the way that they mark that assignment complete is to either upload that email confirmation page or a screenshot of their SAR so that we have evidence that it's been completed.
So confirming the completion, it's showing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, because Kathy, you know, when you do self-reporting, they can say that it's done. And we're talking about this here recently. Students will get halfway through a FAFSA and it's the parent portion, and students may think they're done or they've done their FAFSA and not created their FSA ID and signed their FAFSA and they thought that they were done. So we want to just see evidence that projected grant, projected loan, that it has been completed. So we're confirming their initial completion of the FAFSA that way.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the other thing we're hearing is that sometimes students are completing the FSA ID and thinking they completed their FAFSA. So yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that seeing the confirmation. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we talked about, I mentioned that relationship building before. This helps with that because there are natural touch points that are built in here where students are bringing this to their counselors so that we know and can have some of those other conversations with them as far as what else needs to be completed or maybe something that was off when they thought that they were confirmed with something. So we like that piece of it because it continues to build that relationship. Another data point for Bright Futures, you know, in our state, we do track Bright Futures. So you can see we really had an emphasis in 17-18 and it was high. And the next year it dipped, which was primarily due to test scores. So we focused on some test prep. We had Valencia come over and do some test prep with the PERT, which we thought would still be important for our students as far as testing, college admissions testing goes. And we embedded in our ELA and intensive reading classes X amount of time that students were spending on Khan Academy. So you can see that from 18-19 to 19-20, we had a huge jump. And that's important for us because it's not just about students being accepted somewhere, but it's about them having access. They need the finances to be able to pay for it because many of our students can get accepted to some, we track top 100 acceptances as well, which I don't have in here. We have 400 and plus students at 1 year that were accepted, top 100 schools, but they can't go because they can't afford it. So we want to make sure that we're trying to give them as many touch points of access as possible. We also track AAs, which is important for us because that speaks to our partnership with our state college and our technical college. So here it's just our AAs. Last year, I started to track our students who were completing their technical programs, and we'll continue to track that. But you can see over the years with a point of emphasis in doing PERT prep work and getting the information sessions that were one of the strategies that we had back when we started Got College, and identifying the right students and making sure that we're testing those students, giving them access. You can see that from the first year that we really started to track it up until last year, look at that increase. And that's important for us, and it helps drive it. So we had this conversation back in 17-18 about students that were one, or two classes away from earning their AA. So for the next year, 18-19, we were able to offer them, there was a waiver that they can sign that would allow them to take that extra class or two. And you can see that it jumped up almost, it almost doubled, and then it almost doubled again the following year. So that has helped us tremendously to drive those conversations, tracking this data.
Great. Anthony, Ken is sharing that you brought up a great point on test scores and prep. So thank you for that. With so many colleges going test optional, have you heard anything about Bright Futures changing their testing requirement?
I have not. The latest that I've seen is that the test scores for Bright Futures have gone up. But if y'all notice when you're going on to the to Bright Futures website and you're looking at the handbook, it's still last year's handbook. So they have been a little slow to release information on Bright Futures. So you're kind of getting what I'm getting as well. Even when I reach out, that's what we're getting. The only updates that we've had specifically has been community service, and then from our graduating class last year, them extending the testing date to December, so that way students last year can take their tests and still have access to those funds. But as far as our current seniors, there hasn't been many updates for us to even report out on.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the culmination of all of our data. It's been important for us because y'all asked the question earlier, what happens once they leave? How do you know they're going military and things of that nature? Again, military employment or an apprenticeship is hard to track, but what we can track, 2-year, 4-year tech vocational. So I thought this was important to share with y'all because oftentimes we talk about summer melt. And in my mind, because I've been trained in my district, I'm always thinking about data. I'm like, well, how do we know there's summer melt, you know? So this was important to us, and we're building this out because we just got access to the full suite of Clearinghouse. So my research, evaluation, and assessment team and our CP partners are working on building this out. This should be ready to go in October, where we'll be able to look at 2017, 2018, and a little bit of 2019, but I thought this was good to show you. If we look at even our first school, CHS, so we're tracking confirmed plans because that's what we have control of, right? We can prep them while they're in our K-12 system. We can help them identify their plan. We can help them execute their plan. But once they leave us, what's going on, right? So looking at just our first school, Celebration High School, you can see that that year we were able to identify 77% of our students had a confirmed plan, which entails everything: 2-year, 4-year tech, vocational, military, apprenticeship, employment, voc rehab, all of that's included in there. So I don't want to act like this was just strictly, you know what, I take that back. It is just strictly. My CFE data guru made it so that this was specifically what we can track: 2-year, 4-year tech, vocational. So this is apples to apples. When you look at our confirmed plans, we're at 77% for that high school. And when you look at what happened within 3 years, as we know that this generation, it does take longer for them to earn their AAs, to earn their bachelor's degree. So we wanted to make sure that they were still in school pursuing their education. When you look, there was only a 73%, there was a 4% drop off. They went from 77 to 73. And you can see across this slide that the majority of our schools are that way. It was minimal drop off, or we weren't able to capture students with their confirmed plans, and they are sitting at a post-secondary institute, 2-year, 4-year tech vocational, pursuing something. There were a couple of our schools where we saw significant drops. And we're working with those schools to kind of shore up that process, making sure that we're helping students really identify their plan and execute that plan, so that way we can see that follow through like the other schools have done. But for us, when we look at this class of 2016, outside of 2 schools, there's not much quote unquote summer melt going on. Our students are confirming their plans, and then they're following through with their plans 2-3 years out. So that was encouraging for us. And when I shared that with our partners at Valencia and OTEC and our district leadership, they were excited, because that says what we're doing is working, right? They leave us, and it's not just a hope and a prayer. They're actually following through with those things. So I thought that was important to share with y'all.
Yeah, that's great, because that is part of the challenge, is how do we make sure all the way through that, what we're doing is actually being effective. So thanks for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we're going on to support.
Last slide. This kind of brings everything full circle, because when you're thinking about, okay, you're collecting all this data, what does it do for your district? Like, is it helping? Are you just collecting to collect? Yes, we're seeing that students are following through, which is great, because that's what we want. We want them to leave us to be successful members of society. But what's happening in our K-12 system? So using all that data, we're able to work with CTE department, who has built out CTE pathways from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And many of those pathways follow their feeder high schools. And if they don't, we have become a choice district where students can choose to go to a school that has that same pathway that maybe they were pursuing in middle school, or maybe it's a pathway that they want to pursue, didn't have the opportunity in middle school, and now has that opportunity in high school. So the high schools will come down to the middle schools and recruit that way, especially when we're able to produce for them. Hey, listen, you for example, we actually had this conversation a couple of years ago. They were trying to build up our Future Teacher Academy program, identifying educators at a young age and getting them in that pathway. And they reached out to me and they was like, Cook, what schools have the most? And I was able to pull that out of my Career Shines, because it gives the top 3 careers. Career clusters, and education and training was one of them. So we were able to pull that, and the high schools that had those programs were able to recruit out at those middle schools as they were, leaving 8th grade going into 9th grade. So that way they can get them into the programs and kind of keep them there. Because I don't know if y'all know, but for our district, we have a huge number of students. They leave elementary school, they want to be a teacher. They leave middle school, they want to be a teacher. After 9th grade, it's like in 14% or less are trying to be teachers. So we're seeing this huge drop off in that field. So we were able to use that data to help with that recruitment piece. Dual enrollment is also another one. So my partnerships with OTEC and Valencia, when they have new programs and such, we're able to pull, hey, at this high school, they're the ones that have kids that are mostly interested in those pathways. So maybe we can get some presentations out there, do an immersive experience with them so that they can get a feel for that and find out if this is really what they want to do. So that way we can educate them as much as possible, so that when they do graduate, they have the most informed, they can make the most informed decision. Field trips have become a big thing for us. So our 5th graders were able to, we started to realize we needed to catch them younger and younger. So right now, the youngest that I'm able to go, our 5th graders go on a field trip to our state college to get a feel for what college would look like and let them know that that's an opportunity. And because it's Valencia, it's not just about traditional college, right? As we said, college isn't for everybody, but education is for everybody. So they get to learn about the AA and the AS programs. So we're starting to plant those seeds for, listen, you don't have to go the traditional route. You can go the AS route as well, be in there for a short time, jump out, and be a part of that high wage career industry. Our 7th graders, we take them on a field trip to Valencia and to OTEC, and really these are our bubble students, so our students that have maybe become disconnected from school. We want them to have an immersive experience, so the field trips are built that way. We get them out there, they get to explore what potential careers would be like, so hopefully make that connection to school and their academics. Like, I need to get this done, or else I'm not going to be able to pursue those things. And we've had great feedback from parents. That it really has helped their child make that turnaround. We started that about 2 years ago. Our CTE Premier programs, field trips. So we have some based on the industry field. There are some industries that they're in need, and they're in high need. So we have partnerships with local businesses that flex on mechatronics, the culinary arts, hospitality and tourism, construction and engineering, where these students will be able to go out to Gaylord Palms and they'll be able to see if I'm pursuing culinary or hospitality and tourism, or even if I'm going the engineering route, as Gaylord Palms has their own engineering department, that they could, this is where they could utilize those things. We're building a bridge last year here in our district, so students were able to go out and witness that and see how all of the architecture, construction, and engineering was coming together. So I'm able to pull that data from our platform to identify students that are interested in those. Our college and career counselors do that, and then they work with those students to get them onto those field trips. And then lastly, the Valencia and OTEP field trips. There's about 4 that are available each year for each high school to take, and this was brought on as we showed the data when we were really low. One of our foundations stepped in and said, we need to expose our students to what's here in our backyard. So they fully funded this for us, gave them a trip to Valencia, gave them a trip to OTEP. So we still utilize this now. We identify, it depends. This is a school-based decision. College and career counselors are in the field. They know what groups need to go, which ones need to have that immersive experience. So they have to take at least 1 trip to OTEC, 1 trip to Valencia. And last year we started with our ELL group, taking them also to Valencia because of the supports that Valencia has to discuss what options are there for them once they finish high school, whether they graduate or not, and what supports are there for them to be able to do that. And then the other trip is free for a college and career counselor to decide how they want to use that. And all of that was birthed out of our Got College movement and the data that we collected from that. Funding, we're in a partnership with Valencia from dual enrollment. Dr. Plinsky came on. There was money that was coming to Valencia, or that Valencia was covering to pay for our dual enrollment students. And then that agreement was up, and Dr. Plinsky was like, hey, listen, I still want to drive this Got College movement. Our kids need to get a post-secondary education. And we just converted that money into doing things that are college and career related throughout the district. So there's a budget that I manage in partnership with Valencia to make these field trips happen. I have a transition coach that is dispersed amongst 3, they have about 3 schools apiece. This helps our decision day celebrations. It helps with waivers for college applications. There's a lot that we get to do with this budget. Education Foundation, we've been able to drive the need for more money. So they have increased scholarships over the past 2-3 years so that our kids have access to more scholarship funds so that they can pursue their educational pathways. And then, of course, the district will jump in wherever I might need them to jump in with the purchasing of our web-based platform. And then there's other things that they help me do. College Week is coming up, and we award like best dressed each day in the themes that we do. So they've helped fund that and getting them the awards and things of that nature, amongst other things that the district does as far as funding goes. And then lastly, our stakeholder supporters. School board was a part of the Got College movement. The ones that are currently sitting on the board, they were part of the initiation of that. So they got to witness this firsthand, and they even came up with their own ideas. There's 2 things that they really drive, and that's our top 10 junior breakfast, where we start to connect our academically competitive juniors to people in the workforce, in the military, in our local business, in our government, that will help write them letters of recommendation, use their alumni network to get them plugged into schools that maybe they never thought about. I get to present on all things financial aid, all things top 100, all things top 100 and our low SES students that are high flyers. So that was birthed out of them. And we do a top 100 celebration at the end of the year. So we started to really push that about 4 years ago because we had students that could go to top 100 schools. And remember, I said we're a low SES district, a Title I district, and we know that schools do have money to help support families that are there like that. So we really started to drive that, and we've seen it quadruple over the past 4 years as far as acceptances. Now that we have this clearinghouse data, we're going to start to get in the weeds to see how many kids are actually pursuing those top 100 acceptances. And then, of course, our district leadership and departments meet. I say that I've infiltrated every department at my district. I work in conjunction with all content areas, all grade levels, our ESE, our ELL, our technology. So there's all of our departments, because this is embedded in our strategic plan and we see the value in it. I work with all of our departments. So I just kind of wanted y'all to have a feel for the practicality of all of this and how it can improve what's being done in the district as far as college and career exploration.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for letting us pick your brain and ask questions along the way and giving us that comprehensive look into how to pull all this together. I've got your contact information up on the screen, so if anyone wants to reach out to you directly with questions, they can do so. And, you know, as we're coming up on the 2 o'clock hour, if you'd like to hear more about what's coming up with FCAN and future webinars, promising practices, or policy briefs, we do have a few more webinars that will be promoted, I believe, starting this Friday. So if you're not already a subscriber, I encourage you to do so. And many thanks to Anthony and Laverne for everything you've done to really help us understand how to ensure all students have a plan for life after high school. Thank you so much. And many thanks to everyone who dialed in today. We appreciate your interest. Have a great rest of the week.